Hello, real writers. Happy post-Halloween. I am still enjoying the season, as you can tell by my spooky candles and my witchy cards here. So I have a bunch of witch decks, and I bought two more. I just love them. They're so much fun. And so I thought that I would share this one, and it's literally all different witches. So it's the Modern Wiccan Spellbook. Sweet Spells and Wicked Witchery by Gillian Kemp, and it does have spells in it. I'm not going to read the spells because they are in some ways influencing other people, and I haven't read through all of them, and I'm not sure I agree with that. So it depends on the deck it depends on the card, because there are good witches and bad witches. The good witches are the yellow cards, the bad witches are the red cards. And they're really sort of, shadow sides of ourselves, and which we all have. We all have our moments, right? So, anywho, I'm not going to read the spells just because. So let's get started. I'm going to pick number 2 because I don't think I usually do number 2. And let's start off with a bad witch. So this is the Ring Around the Ring Around the Moon Witch. That's a little tricky to say. And these cards are super fun and whimsical, and they're fun to just, fall into. Ring Around the Moon Witch. So let's look that up. It's number 26. Okay. The Ring Around the Moon Witch brings you a deeper wisdom. The witch's warning is to be careful in what you wish for. Like the ring around the moon, wishes without true sentiment evaporate. Make no mistake, truly heartfelt wishes do come true. So this is actually a spell that's okay. In front of a mirror, symbolic of the moon's reflection, burn frankincense and myrrh incense, or anoint a white candle or silver candle with frankincense and myrrh oil. Both have a purifying influence. Sit in front of the mirror and look at a picture of a dove. Focus on the dove, allowing the peace essence of the dove to imbue you with tranquility. Your mirrored reflection is your soul. The dove is the guiding spirit. When you are at peace, snuff the candle out. So, who among you who chose this card has made a wish that you thought you wanted, but it's not what you wanted? And so it's not turning out the way you expected, or it's not happening at all. Did you really wish with your heart, or did you wish for something else? It's fine to want fame and fortune, admiration, all those things. But can you also see that through the filter of making a contribution of your own special vision and skills as a writer, because this is about writing, helping other writers, highlighting other writers, making it a group, highlighting a group of people so that everyone gets attention, forming, maybe you could organize a reading or edit an anthology of writing from your fiction group or your songwriting group or your poetry group, or for your city even, and pitch that to a local small press and hold readings around the city as a way of launching the book, right? And that will get attention and highlight your work as well as the work of others, and you all support each other. See what I mean? There's a difference between one wish versus the other. And just deep down, what do you really, really want? Why are you really wishing for what you're wishing with regard to your writing? Maybe journal on that. Maybe you want to be a best-selling author. Okay, that's cool. Totally get that. What is the deeper wish there for, though? I don't want to get all Freudian, or you don't need to lie down to talk about this. We're not going to dive into your childhood, but just really consider why your wish isn't coming true and what that means. And maybe you need to change course. Have you had a certain writing goal for a very, very long time and it's not working out? Why isn't it working out? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's the wrong goal. Maybe it's an outdated goal. It's something you wanted to do before, but now you're interested in something else. And that might change who you are as a writer and who others perceive you to be. And it might mean you have to give certain things up, leave your writing group, move, go get an MFA. Like, I don't know what it is. And the people around you may not welcome that change. That's, whatever we do often makes other people reflect on their own lives and the things they're not doing or the things they want to do but gave up, and that's hard for them. And so they want to just drag people down to their level. And that can be hard. You want to be happy about your choices and excited and have people support you. So it just depends on your situation, but really take a look at your goals. I mean, we're still coming out of this whole horrible episode of the pandemic, and it's been very dark and difficult and lonely, and there's been a lot of loss and fear, and there's been a lot of death and a lot of waking up to the fact that, we have antibiotics, but we're not all powerful, and not everyone is doing things for the right reasons. And a lot of people think differently about life and their choices and what they will and won't do and what they believe in. And this is all coming to the fore, and it's a lot to deal with. So has this period of time changed your own beliefs about your life, about yourself, about your writing goals, about your writing? It doesn't hurt to sit down and write out like a strategic plan for yourself, right? Or where do I want to be in 5 years? And, something like that. Why don't you write, this is fun. Why don't you write a self-review? The way we do at work, sometimes if you're lucky enough to have a job where you write a self-review and then you go over it versus your boss writing the review, why don't you write one of those? I'm sure you can find those online. If I can find something, I'll post a link in the description box. And do it about your writing and your writing life and your writing goals, and see what happens, and be brutally honest. Maybe have some wine or beer or whatever, gin and tonic, whatever, tea, and just sit down and be brutally honest, because there's no time like the present. Okay. So that's the Ring Around the Moon witch. Let's go to number 1. And that is the Immortal Witch. Well, that kind of goes with what we just talked about, isn't it? Because fame, fortune, admiration, published books, those are a way of remaining immortal. Is that something that you are thinking of? Is that at the root of, to some degree, you want to leave your mark, have a legacy? So perhaps something to consider if you picked card number 2 in the middle, which was the first card that we talked about. So let's look at, that candle's hot. The Immortal Witch, it's number 4. In the Good Witch, that was number 2, was the Bad Witch, Ring Around the Moon Witch. So the Immortal Witch is number 4, if I can find it. Okay. The Immortal Witch brings the promise of spring, a new beginning, and a flourishing of hopes and wishes. Seeds of revival and new growth germinate in the darkness of solitude and absence. You cannot fail to win your heart's desire. Positive, invisible forces are making sure that you reach your destiny by your own natural talent and effort. All that you search for is within your grasp. A happy time filled with new opportunities is about to present itself to you. Well, isn't that interesting? That's really interesting. Watch the reading that just was prior to this for the Ring Around the Moon witch. Maybe this is telling a story that if you do the work of that card, this is the result. And it does say seeds of revival and new growth germinate in the darkness of solitude and absence. Well, we're entering the winter time. The clocks have changed. It's now darker earlier and for longer, and we haven't yet reached the winter solstice where the light returns. So here we are in this period of intensifying longer darkness. And here's an opportunity to plant seeds of new growth. take the time, pull back, spend time with yourself, spend time with your writing, look at your work, look at where you are, take stock of what you want to do, of maybe it's just take stock of a project you're working on. Just take a moment. Is it going where you want it to go? Is it moving in the direction you want it to move? How do you feel about it now? It's always a good time to take stock, but especially now, because we're going to have a lot more. Maybe you like a very busy social winter season. I do not. I use this as an opportunity to hide even more than usual as an introvert, but it depends. If you are a super social person, maybe pull back a little bit more this season so that you can work a bit more on your writing. It doesn't have to be a lot. You can still go to parties and go shopping. Be careful out there. We still, COVID is still out there, so be careful in whatever way you are taking care of yourself. And, just spend some time thinking about this. It says you cannot fail to win your heart's desire. Positive invisible forces are making sure you reach your destiny by your own natural talent and effort. Note the word effort. You have to make the effort. And it talks about natural talent, which is natural only to you. It's innate only to you. So perhaps in keeping with the previous card, take a moment and see, are you really being yourself? Are you really writing as yourself? Are you really focusing on what you want to say and who you want to be as a writer? Or are you allowing what others around you are doing or being or writing to influence you? Did somebody just win a prize and you're feeling like, oh, I haven't run a prize. I need to write something that will win. And then you're writing something that you're trying to do to win, but it's not really who you are and it's not what you would normally write, and it's for a purpose of winning. It's not something that you want to share because it's who you really are as a writer, right? And it's also taking time that's not natural to you. Do you know who you are naturally as a writer? Have you thought about that? Maybe think about that. Maybe this is something you can take some stock of. I talked about writing a self-review of yourself in my reading of the other card previous to this. So perhaps that could also be a good thing to do. Know your strengths and weaknesses and what you've accomplished and what you hope to accomplish. So as long as you stay true to yourself and you do the work, it's saying that all you search for is within your grasp and new opportunities are about to present themselves to you. So I guess I would say, don't just say, oh, well, it's coming, I'll just sit back. No, that's not what this card is saying. You have to make the effort. You have to be true to yourself. And you definitely want to choose wisely when it comes to the opportunities that present themselves. Okay, so let's go to card number 3. Ooh, in contrast, we have the North Witch. The wintry North Witch. I love that all of these are witches. I love that. I was so happy to discover that it wasn't going to be filled with a lot of other things like the chalice, the wand, the broomstick, which other card decks do. It's literally all different kinds of witches, which I love. It's so fun. Okay, so the North Witch. The North Witch reminds us that we orient ourselves to the north, sunless in its essence. The north is the dark side of every situation. The darkest phase is like an undrinkable frozen cup of happiness. The positive consolation is hibernation and energy conservation. Patience in every situation is your virtue. So, as usual, I feel like all these cards are connected. This is so interesting because we just went from the Ring Around the Moon Witch in the center, which was sort of a bad witch shadow side card, to the Immortal Witch, which was a spring green card. And now we have the North Witch, which is this bright white, blank, frozen. there's a word I'm trying to think of it's not coming. Icy, sharp, clear, take your breath away, blindingly clear. I think of when I think of snow, I think of blindingly clear. You can also think blank page if you want. That's fair. And it's sort of like, I don't know, it's sort of like a cleansing, clearing period, even as it's dark. There's a different kind of light in winter, and it's very sharp. It's kind of watery, but it's also, when it snows, very sharp and clear, and it comes with a very intense darkness at the same time. And the polarity of that is so interesting. And we just talked about, in some ways, hibernation and energy conservation in the previous card, because we go through winter to reach spring. And, winter is when the seeds are dormant before they obviously burst forth in spring, and they're gathering the energy to do that. So these cards, in some ways, I feel like go together really well. But also, this card is the North Witch, the true north. What is your true north? That's usually spoken of as, who are you? What are you meant to do? What's your purpose? Where are you going? What's your goal that only you can have, that expresses only the gifts that you can express because you are unique, right? And we just talked about that in the previous card, being true to yourself. It talked about natural talent, applying your natural talent and effort, and that would pay off, right? So maybe, and I talked about this in the other two cards too, maybe you're not sure what your true north is and what your natural talent is, in which case it's time to take some stock, and this is the perfect time of year to do that. And I think what I'm going to tell all of you, because this is what I've been saying to everybody, is to write a self-review of yourself as a writer, in the same way we write these self-reviews of ourselves at work, if you're lucky enough to be that person who does that, rather than getting the review from your boss and then having to respond to that. The self-reviews always yield more information and better conversation, I feel. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we're usually harder on ourselves than our bosses are in that case. So don't be hard on yourself, but be honest. And take stock of who you are as a writer. Where do you want to go? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you need to work on? What have you accomplished? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How do you see yourself getting there? What steps can you take? What resources do you need? Who do you need to talk to? Do you need to leave your critique group? Do you need to go take some classes? Do you need an MFA? Do you need to go to readings? You can do all this stuff on Zoom, by the way. You don't even have to leave your house. You could host a Zoom meeting, get some people together and, reading, and host a Zoom reading and advertise it. Right? And that could be a new way to meet new people and get new feedback on your work and be inspired by other people. It's easy to get in a rut if we've only been working with the same people over and over for years and years. It becomes a little too insular. And we start writing for the group we're in versus who we really are. So what is your true north? Of course, this makes me think of Martha Beck, who wrote a book about finding your true north. I think that's the title, but I could be wrong. Martha Beck, she's written in a bunch of different magazines, BECK, and she's great. So that's a book recommendation. So maybe write this self-review and see where you are. Are you headed towards your true north still, or did you veer off because something shiny that somebody else had made you a little envious, and so you thought, I need to have that, and then you took a left turn and now you need to figure out where you are again because you're off course. Although, I'm a fan of taking in what's at the side of the road. I'm also a fan of that, and taking some detours, but don't lose sight of where you're going as well, which is a course that can change over time. But as long as you're following, as we're talking about this card, your true north, I think that still works. It's just making sure you're doing what's right for you, what's best for you, not what's best for somebody else, not what somebody else did, but what's best for you. Using your innate talents and gifts. And if you're not sure what those are, maybe talk to other writers who know you, or pay for an editorial assessment from somebody. You know, find an editor and ask them if they'll do a sample reading of your book, and or just read the first 50 pages and give you their feedback. And that shouldn't be too expensive to do. I do that all the time, so it's not that expensive. And that can give you a very objective opinion on your writing. But it doesn't hurt to take stock, especially now that we're going into this season. It doesn't hurt to pull back and take a look at where you are and make sure you're headed in the right direction, so that when spring comes, the seeds that you planted that you want to bloom are the ones that bloom, and that you planted them for the right reasons. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I bring home flowers that I'm super excited by and I can't wait for them to open, and then they don't open. I've written a poem about that before, about some flowers that didn't open. Literally all of them did not open. I felt sort of slighted and offended. And I mean, I gave them water and they were in a lovely, they had a little bit of sun, but not too much sun. And I couldn't figure it out. And it's happened to me before, happened to me a couple of times. And, you can't force things to happen that are not meant to happen. So something to think about. So, okay, role writers, that's my reading. Let me turn these cards around. And if you're interested in looking at the other cards that you didn't choose, go back through the reading and use the timestamps and have a look. Let me know what you think. If you do your self-review, I would love to hear what you gave yourself. Like, would you give yourself a raise? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What did you learn? I'll see if I can find something to share in the description box to get you started. Okay, everyone, I hope you have a lovely weekend and happy writing.